During Lin's 25 starts last season, only one other player matched his 18 points and 8 assists per game. That was Chris Paul. But will Lin put up those numbers over the course of a whole season? That's the question Ian's talking about. The good news for Lin, both Kyle Lowry and Goran Dragic thrived playing in Kevin McHale's system in Houston last year. The bad news, as Lin skeptics would point out, you look at this and you can see under Mike Woodson, his numbers dropped minutes, points, and assists per game by about 30%. Some of that could have been fatigue, scouting reports, Carmelo Anthony's role. But it's all information to take in. Tom Penn, our ESPN NBA analyst and salary cap expert, certainly understands that very well. Former executive with the Blazers and Grizzlies. Tom, I'd like you to start us out here. End the confusion about that $50 million luxury tax hit that people are talking about. What would have happened had the Knicks matched the sheet and kept their big three?
This is the new CBA, the new system. The tax system that's been in place has always been dollar for dollar, including this year. Starting next year, it's a progressive tax, much more punitive. So, for example, a team $20 million over the tax this year pays $20 million in penalties. Next year, $20 million over, you pay $45 million for that 20. So now let's talk about the Knicks. We don't know where their payroll would be. But if you project organic growth, keep their core together, I'd say they're going to be $5 million in the tax without him. Add that $15 million, that costs them $37.5 million in taxes. That makes Jeremy Lin incrementally a $52.5 million player in that poison pill year. So these are real salary numbers, real dollars, even for the Knicks.
But of course, it's not just his contract, right? It's Amare's and Carmelo's and Tyson Chandler's. Any one of those guys goes free, and Lin is maybe a bargain. As you've been in the front office, how do you try to project what things are going to be like in 2-3 years?
Well, it depends your commitment to the core. They're financially committed to those three guys in that year to the tune of $62 million. So they're not going anywhere unless they choose to move them. They're incrementally adding on that $15 million that could turn into $52.5. Guess what? It could get worse if they add other players via trade. So they could have shed salary, but they're in go-for-it mode right now with Carmelo and that core group. How do you add that salary? All things considered, they obviously chose to let him go. Their decision, boy, it's sad to see it end because it was such a magical, fun ride.
What do you make of the rancor over Houston changing its offer sheet?
You know, it's a new play on the oldest trick in the book. If you're going after a restricted free agent in the NBA, you tend to get predatory and you try to make it toxic. So in the old days, you'd add a big signing bonus in or front-load payments, all these disincentives for the team to match because they have to do whatever's in that offer, and sometimes within 7 days. This is a new twist where because of that new luxury tax system, they're putting this big bullet in year 3 because Lin's in this category where the numbers are depressed for the first 2 years because that's all the Knicks can offer. So this whole idea of being predatory and ramming it to the old team to create all this trouble for them. I think you'll probably see the same thing with Omar Asik and the offer that's going to go there because the Bulls are in a similar situation. You know, the real question is, how's this going to play out? Will this become a trend, or will it be like the old full mid-level contracts about a decade ago? Teams started giving out $5 million escalating deals for 5 years. Then you did the analytics 3 years later, and all those were terrible deals with 1 or 2 exceptions. We'll see how Lin performs. We'll see how these other restricted free agents perform to see if this becomes more of a trend.
What do you think the Knicks should have done with Jeremy Lin?
Well, that's a tough one. $52.5 million, even for the Knicks, is a big number. You know, the other question right now is how does he fit? He never really played with Carmelo and with Amari and with Tyson. With that core group they're committed to, he didn't play, and let's face it, Carmelo did not like it. It was not a fit. He wants that ball in his hand, and Jeremy needs it, and Jeremy should have it. So when you talk about that kind of financial cost, the handcuffs it puts on you with your other flexibility, and then the question marks, he only played 1,200 minutes, and we're not sure how he really fits with the core that's there. I think that's why they made this decision to let him move on, prove his mettle more in Houston, see if he can continue to do it. And the Knicks are going to, all their eggs are in the Carmelo basket. That's their franchise player, and it's on him to carry them to the LeBron, Wade, Derrick Rose level. That's where they have to go as a franchise. That's what they're about, and we'll see if they can get there. But Lin was just dynamite for him in that role with the core players that he played with.
No question about that. Tom Penn, as always, great talking basketball with you here on ESPN. Even though he made just 25 starts, Jeremy Lin ranked second in the NBA in jersey sales for the entire season, eclipsed only by the reigning MVP, Derrick Rose. And Lin's jersey was the #1 seller in both February and March when Lin's sanity was at its apex. We're joined now by Tom Wong, who is the managing editor at the Dallas Morning News and an ethics and diversity fellow at the Poynter Institute, as well as Bryan Chu, who writes for BleacherReport.com. He has covered Jeremy Lin since both were in high school in the Bay Area. Thomas, let me begin with you. What do you think is the impact of Lin's move on the Asian American community in Houston? You're in Dallas, but what is the effect in Houston?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge win for the community in Houston. You have nearly 400,000 Asian Americans there. You have nearly 1 million Asian Americans in Texas. Now, Jeremy Lin's story transcends race, of course. Whatever your color is, you respect him and admire him for representing the American dream. He's a quiet guy who really made it big. And at the same time, he does have a special resonance with Asian Americans. So I think he's really going to connect with the Houston community.
Brian, how much do you think it matters that it's Houston, of all places, where Yao Ming was such an influence globally as a Rocket?
I think that makes a big deal, and it's important to see the fact that he's going to the Houston Rockets because of what Yao Ming's been able to already establish there. They know how to utilize the endorsement opportunities, the media opportunities with China, and also the fact that Yao Ming was able to help develop the players around him to help build their brands, such as Shane Battier, Tracy McGrady. I remember playing basketball in Shanghai at parks, and there were courts that were named after Tracy McGrady that I was playing on, and Yao was able to help develop their brands overseas. And now you have Jeremy Lin coming into the fold, and he's going to be able, hopefully, be able to do the same thing as long as the team continues to win.
Thomas, how do the Rockets promote and use Lin's ethnicity without making it define him?
I think that they have to be somewhat subtle about it. I wouldn't try to market it strongly, but at the same time, you have this huge market in China. Something I saw said 300 million people in China play basketball. 30 million people in China watch the NBA every week. I mean, that is a huge audience. So it would be smart for the Houston Rockets to find some way to connect Jeremy with the Chinese community. At the same time, I wouldn't play it too big.
Brian, what do you think the move from New York City, the Big Apple, to Houston does for Jeremy Lin globally?
You know what, it's just a continuation of what he was able to do in New York. The fact that you had this awesome story, you know, undrafted, Division I, not a single Division I scholarship offer, and the fact that he was able to do what he did in that short amount of time, it just continues that story, and it makes everyone realize just how great it was in terms of an inspiration. And you have this individual who was mentioned before, you know, almost decided to call it quits and to become pastor, and the fact that he was able to follow his dreams, and who knows when the next time there's going to be another Jeremy Lin out there. So, you know, kudos to the Rockets, huge win for them, and you know, it's remained to be seen what's going to happen in terms of how the Knicks are going to miss him and how much the Rockets are going to be able to utilize him.
Thomas, what do you think in terms of off the court? What is the best way for Jeremy Lin to excel as a Houston Rocket?
I think Jeremy Lin's going to be a really great ambassador. We know that he is a man of devout faith. He's a quiet man, a very thoughtful man. He's very committed to community service. So I think once he gets to Houston, I think the community there is really going to learn that he's such a man of tremendous character, a leader off the court as well as on the court. So I see real big positives in this move.
Brian, if you read nationally, there seems to be the school of thought that Jeremy Lin, his personality has changed in a way since his life has changed. And you've known him for a long time. How would you characterize Jeremy Lin's personality?
The big thing is, even with this whole contract, he came into playing basketball not because he was looking for the fame and fortune. It just so happened that was a byproduct of how well he did during that 25-game stretch. For him, it was always about playing basketball, helping his teammates become better, and then, you know, putting himself in a position where he could actually follow his dream. And the fact that he got this contract with the Rockets, I mean, it just continues. It helps him continue that story. And, you know, his personality, in my mind, hasn't changed. You know, still that humble individual, and still that player that's hungry, and that one that's willing to help others around him become better.
Thomas, what responsibility does Jeremy Lin have for the Asian American community in Houston, in Texas, in the country?
Well, even though his story transcends race, I do think he is a role model. I think you'll find a lot of young Asian American kids who are playing pickup basketball who will be looking up to him. So given that he, as Bryan said, he does have good character, I think they'll find a tremendous role model in him. Again, on the court as well as off the court. He's going to have to conduct himself well in the community.
And Bryan, what do you think the people in Houston are getting with Jeremy Lin arriving?
You know, just a great individual who has a passion for the game, who's become an inspiration for all the young kids out there across all Asian American communities. A person who can be a role model for other individuals, and a person that you can see, if you follow your dreams and you continue to work hard, that, you know, the sky is the limit. And, you know, this is a great opportunity, a second chance in a sense for Jeremy Lin to prove himself, to cultivate his potential, and also a second chance for the Rockets as well, because now they have they bring him back after not signing him.
We'll see how high he can fly in Houston after he reached unprecedented heights with the Knicks. Bryan Chu in Los Angeles, Thomas Wong in Dallas. We appreciate your time on Outside the Lines.